Welcome to English Grammar. Today's class will be discussing the agreement of subject and verb. Let's look at our grammarian's guide. Today's lesson, we're really going to discuss the agreement between subject and verb, the intervening phrase, and the indefinite pronouns as subject. So, what is an agreement of subject and verb? Every language has it. Greek, Hebrew, Arabic, they all have this agreement. So don't let that frighten you. It's not a fight. It's not a physical fist fight. It's not a battle of the wits. It's simply a term that shows a connection between subject and verb. In this particular case, there are lots of different kinds of agreements too. There's an agreement of compound subjects and so forth and so on. We'll discuss a little bit more of that later, but right now let's get to the basics of it. Agreement of subject and verb is a word that refers to one person or thing, a person or thing. Remember, that's a noun, a person, place, a thing. It is a word that refers to one person or thing that is singular in number. Now, what is number? Well, like all languages, there's a singular and a plural. In English grammar, there is a singular and a plural. And so if we are talking about Carlos, the president of Lucent Institute, we are talking about one person. He is singular, Carlos. If we are talking about Carlos's family, then we're talking about the plural, a group of people. So a singular is one, plural is two. A word that refers to more than one is a plural in number, okay? So don't let the singular and plural confuse you. We're talking about either singular, which comes from the root of single, or plural, which is more than one. So don't freak out. We're just talking about these kinds of things, but you have to understand that there are numbers in English grammar and the use of the language. And when these are used correctly, they describe everything. Now, it's fascinating that there are some words, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes, that don't quite match this definition right here. But we'll talk about that. Don't freak out. An agreement is really easy to understand. Real quick, let's talk about singular and plural. For instance, real quick, this category, singular and plural, they have some really easy things. So let's talk about singular. So car, that's one car. Ox, that's one ox. This is a singular word. Either is a singular word. He, she, it. Those are referring to one person. Those are pronouns referring to one thing. All of these, if you see them written in language, are talking about one thing. That's it, single. There's no room. That's a car, an ox. This way, which is one way. Either he or she. He, she, or it is talking about one male, female, or something. Let's talk about plural. Now, plural is a plethora, is multiple, is many. So you can think single. There are plenty of single men and women out there. There is a he, she, it somewhere. But when you are thinking about plural, you need to think many. M-A-N-Y. More than one. Multiples, groups. So, look at all those cars. Now, amazingly, all you have to do with some words is add the suffix s. That letter is a very, very popular letter in the Roman alphabet. In fact, if you ever go on the American television, the American syndicated game show, Wheel of Fortune, which my grandparents watched all the time. And, you know, Pat Sajak, he tells them to spin this wheel, and they spin the wheel for so much money, and then they have to guess a letter, or they buy a vowel or something of that nature to fill in the blanks on this hidden puzzle. And Vanna White, you know, walks across the stage, and ding, there's the letter. Always choose the letter S, because S's are used all the time. These letters are used all the time in words, and to build words and to change words from a singular, which car would be singular, to cars, which is many. So remember, just by adding an S to most words, you will then go from a singular position to a plural, from one to many. Okay, so just think about this. Just by adding the letter S, you can go from one to many. So look at the cars in that parking lot. Okay, so then we're then talking about more than one. There's lots of them. Or look at those oxen. Now, you see how funny this is? This ox, or these oxen. See how it goes from a singular to a plural? It's really funny how just changing the word, but understanding the agreement between subject and verb then changes everything. These, this becomes these, either becomes both, either is either that or that, this or that. But both could be both things. This and that become what you're asking for. And then really a simple diagram of going from one to many in the English language is he, she, and it becoming they. They is an incredible, simple word. And now it's not just he, she, and it, or he, she, and it, but it is they, and they are all of them. So he and she and it, they are all included in that one word, but there are many of them. Okay? So that's the differences between singular and plural. It goes really quick, changes everything. And all languages kind of have this value, okay, of the singular and plural. So a verb in an agreement, a verb agrees with its subject in number, okay? So you can't be talking about one subject, one thing, and have a verb over here that is a plural verb, okay? That's what this is talking about. So you can't have a plural subject and have a verb that is only talking about one thing, okay? So you have to agree. You have to make your sentences agree. So if you're talking about one subject, then you need to have a verb that is talking about one thing, one verb that is in agreement between subject and verb. And if you're talking about multiple, many things or more than one subject, then you need a verb that is also talking about more than one thing. And so let's look about this. And it all comes down to singular and plural. So you need to just kind of think about it. Think about how that works. Singular and plural, they are super important when we get to this when we get to this agreement. When we start talking about agreement, you are really talking about, do these two, the verb and the subject, or the subject and the verb, do they really agree? Are they agreeing? And what are they agreeing about? The number. Because if they don't, then the sentence or your statement or your clause will sound completely incorrect, and it will be incorrect. It will sound incorrect, and it leads everything off. And so let's look. Singular subjects take singular verbs. See? It's really simple. I just said that a moment ago. Let's look at some singular verbs, okay? And singular subjects, okay? So, a young woman, okay, real quick. This is your subject. Lives next door is your predicate, okay? Predicate. Now let's look at this real quick, okay? So you have your subject, you have your predicate. We already diagrammed it. Boom. Look how easy that was. Subject and predicate, simple. But let's look at it. So the young woman, we are speaking about one woman. In a moment, we'll talk about this exact sentence as it pertains to speaking about a plural group of women. But in this sentence, we're talking about one woman. One. Okay? And so a young woman lives next door. Lives is the verb. Now look at this. This verb might look plural, but it is actually a singular verb. Okay? So this is one verb, and it is attached to one woman. Okay? So a woman lives next door. In the same way, this bake sale was sponsored by the Pep Club. Okay? Well, real quick, we are talking about the bake sale, but this bake sale was sponsored. Was sponsored. There's your verb. Was sponsored. There's the action. It's talking about one bake sale. It's talking about one sponsor. There's only one sponsor, the Pep Club. There's the sponsor. So it's really who sponsored the bake sale? The Pep Club did. The Pep Club did. So, and what was sponsored? The bake sale. So one sponsor and one bake sale. See how they're in agreement? Okay. It's really not hard. Plural subjects take plural verbs. Remember, more than one. We already discussed that really quick. Let's look at an example. Let's change that sentence. Young women live next door. Oh, so look at this. So we changed the subject to multiple. Now, with this particular plural of women, woman turns to women by changing that. So woman to women. Now we have many women. We don't know how many women. It doesn't tell us. We just know that there's more than one. And we also know that woman or women is more than one. So it's two or more women. Two or more women, and they live next door. Now that plural verb right there, plural verb right here, that plural verb right there, live, is talking specifically about women. So you see how you had two or more women, and now you have to match that plural subject with a plural verb. So you have a plural, two or more women, which is women. Now you have it matched with a plural verb. Let's look at these bake sales were sponsored. Well, wow, all of a sudden, now we're talking about more than one bake sale. And not only that, but instead of the bake sale was sponsored by the Pep Club, now we have changed to these, which is a plural of the. So it's gone from singular to plural. So this is plural. And we've also used a plural verb, which is were there, a plural verb right there, right here in this word. So these bake sales. Oh, and look, I didn't even point out. We added an S to sales. So now we have plural. These bake sales were sponsored. So this right here is plural. So there's more than one. We don't know how many bake sales. It could have been 2. It could have been 20. But either way, we have more than one bake sales, and they were sponsored and were. Now you hear it. You hear that plural. The bake sale was sponsored by the pep club. Was is singular. Were is more than one. But we also know that they were all of these bake sales were sponsored by the pep club. So the pep club is not really what's important here, though it is an added detail. It is an added information. The pep club is still singular. It didn't change. This idea right here is still singular. It needs no explanation, because it really doesn't. It doesn't have any value in the singular plural agreement between subject and verb. What we're talking about right here is these bake sales were sponsored. These bake sales, talking about a plural subject, were sponsored, talking about a plural verb. They match. They're in agreement. They're both plural. Most verbs ending in a single S, there we go again, talking. I got a little bit ahead of myself, but that's all right, are present tense. Present tense. Now, like most languages, English grammar supports 3 different types of tenses. And let me talk just real quick. This is a caveat to this whole agreement of subject and verb. But let me go on and give you this little side note, okay? So we have what we call past tense, which we kind of talked about. Past, present, and then future. All right, so we have past, present, and future. Past, present, and future. They are our different tenses. But most verbs ending in a single S, which I told you, if you're ever on Wheel of Fortune, don't worry about subject and verb agreement. You just simply buy yourself an S, because S will definitely be on the billboard. They just are. Most verbs ending in a singular S, I kind of got ahead of myself, are present tense singular forms. He is, see? She has, he thinks, there's an S. She works, there's another S. Those are present tense singular forms. However, most present tense verbs not ending in a single S are plural. They are, have, think, work, etc. The exceptions, which should cause little difficulty, are verbs used with I and singular you. So I think, you work, etc. These are typically singular words. You, that's a singular you. You work at the mall. I think he's a really nice person. Those are usually singular, and they should not cause you any difficulty. Past tense verbs, Now remember, these are verbs that are in the past tense. He was a great man, meaning he was somebody that lived that was. We're talking about things that have already happened, events that have already taken place. So past tense verbs have the same form in the singular and plural. The exception is the verb be. So make a note, be is the exception, which has a special form, was, okay, that is used with I, he, she, and it, and all singular nouns, okay? So past tense verbs have the same form in singular and plural, with the exception of the verb be, which has a special form, which is was. So let's look again at some singular and plural verbs, okay? I threw. He applied. These are singular. I was, okay? All of these are talking about one person, I or he. It could easily be she applied, or it applied, or anything, but these are all talking about one, okay? Still singular. Now we're talking about many over here, okay? Many. All right, so they threw. I becomes they. They threw. So it's, is it one? No. It could be two. It could be 10. It could be 20. It could be 100. They threw. We applied. It's no longer he. So all these things become plural. And we were. Okay? The number of the subject is not changed by a phrase following the subject. A phrase that comes between a singular subject and its verb can easily mislead you if it contains a plural word. Okay, so let me pause for just a second. Now, in beginning English, you will sometimes see that the subject and the verb are sandwiched right next to each other with no words in between. So there's nothing between the subject and the verb. However, the more advanced, from intermediate to advanced literature in English, you might see a sentence, which I'll show you one in just a moment, where you have the subject up front, and then you have this long set of phrases. I mean, these phrases, these clauses just kind of in the middle between the subject and the verb. And the verb may be way over here or maybe at the end or somewhere. But you have these clauses that are just filled with stuff. And it may have, and what this whole sentence is talking about is it may mislead you if somewhere in the clause it contains a plural word. Then you start thinking, oh, well, did the subject change? Did the original subject that was singular change? No, you've just got to be wise enough to find in context of the sentence that the subject and find the verb that is talking about the subject. What is the verb? The verb is the action, is what is the subject doing? The subject is the noun or the pronoun. The subject is, what is this sentence talking about? And the verb is saying, well, what is this? What is the subject doing? What action is the subject taking? And you've got to find it because they're together. They're going to always try, in proper English grammar, you're going to find that they agree, that they are the same. If you have a singular subject here, you're going to have a singular verb over here. If you have a plural subject, you're going to have a plural verb. They must agree. So remember that the verb agrees with its subject, always, always. In proper English, remembering that the verb agrees with the subject. That is as simple as it gets. But don't get confused by all this middle mumbo jumbo in the clauses that might be written. Even if in the clause somewhere there's a plural word, don't get confused because it will always agree with the subject of the sentence. The verb will match. An example: the counselor was helpful. Okay, well, obviously the counselor here is a singular. There's one counselor, and was is its verb, and was matches that. Now, if I wanted to change this sentence, I could say the counselors and add an S there, the counselors, and then I would have to change the verb to match it, were. So change was to were. The counselors were very helpful. Okay, you see how that changed? But the subject and the verb always match. And in this particular case, the counselor is one, and the verb is also one, is also a singular. So these two have to match. Now, let's look at the second sentence right here. So the counselor for the senior students, was very helpful. Now we're getting confused. Because look, the counselor. Now, I would say, and I guess because you can see that it's highlighted, it's bolded, that you know that the counselor is actually the subject. This is your subject. All right? That's your subject, counselor. But look at this. For the senior students. Oh, no. Oh, no. Look at that. That's a plural. That's a plural. There are more than one students. That's a plural right there, students. Oh, dear. Now, you have to read this properly and recognize that you could refer back to the original sentence. The counselor was very helpful. Okay, great. The counselor was very helpful. That's a singular subject and a singular verb. Now, my suggestion for you is to read the whole sentence and then think about what the sentence was saying. Without looking at that one, you would say the counselor for the senior students was very helpful. Now, you have this mumbo jumbo right here, this clause, this little group of words that is adding detail to the sentence. It's talking about the counselor, but these students are not the subject. So this is not incorrect. This was obviously is talking about the counselor. Now, again, just like up here in the first sentence, the counselors, and if I added an S, now we have a plural. For the senior students, I would have to change that verb, were very helpful. See how I changed it? If you inserted were, that would still, but let me reiterate that the senior students is not the subject. That is not the subject, okay? That were right here is still talking about the counselors. It's still talking about the subject of the sentence. Because what are we really talking about? The counselor was very helpful. Now, for the senior students, this is still talking about the counselor, but it is not the verb. This is added clause. This is a subordinate clause, and it is adding detail to this independent clause, which is the counselor was very helpful. That's a complete thought. You need no further explanation. But in this particular case, we're adding that subordinate clause to this sentence, and it expands. A solution, let's move on. A solution has been found. Okay, well, again, we have a solution. That is our subject. And been, has been, is our has been found is our solution is our subject, and has is our verb. Okay, and so they match, singular and singular. So there we go. That's not really a frowny. That's a singular. That's one and one. So they match. So obviously, again, going back to it, just reiterating this so you get it in your head, subject and verb must agree. If you have a singular, then your verb must be a singular as well. A solution to these problems has been found. Again, we're talking about a singular solution. A solution. A solution to these problems. Now, look, we have again, I'm just showing you that there's this little clause right here. Oh, and look, problems. It's plural. It's as plural as can be. There's more than one problem. A solution, a singular problem, a singular solution to these problems, a plural situation, has been found. All of this is the verb for solution, and has been found is a singular verb. Intervening phrases. In formal writing, singular subjects followed by phrases beginning with together with, as well as, in addition to, and accompanied by, take singular verbs. Okay? So when you see these in formal writing, so if you get into reading scholarly textbooks or theological books, and you see these words, together with or in addition to such and such data, you will find this issue. Well, even there, this issue is a singular verb. It is always going to follow, and it's going to be accompanied. It's going to be followed by phrases that are singular in nature with verbs, singular verbs. Let me give you an example, another really good example. The singer, as well as the musicians, was pleased with the recording. Okay, so cut out all this middle mumbo jumbo, this little clause. The singer was pleased with the recording. That is an independent clause because it made perfectly good sense. You didn't need as well as the musicians. But looking at that, it follows with a singular verb, following the rule of intervening phrase. Okay? So in formal writing, singular subjects followed by phrases beginning with, together with, as well as, in addition to, and accompanied by, take singular verbs. So, okay, so you find these phrases, and you should know that the verb following that phrase, that intervening phrase, is going to be singular, which it is. Singer and was, that's a singular subject, one singer, and one verb. That's a verb for one, okay? Indefinite pronouns as subjects, all right? So don't get caught up in all these terms. Just learn what the language is. Pronouns like everybody, someone, everything, all, and none, which are more or less the indefinite in meaning. Okay, by indefinite meaning you can't specify everybody. Well, I mean, you can't give a specific number to everybody. Everybody could be talking about hundreds of people, or it could be talking about a handful of people, but you don't know who that someone is. that special someone, well, you don't know who that someone is. It could be anyone. It's not specified. Everything is talking about multiple things. All, none, all these things have indefinite, they're not defined. They're indefinite in meaning. Present, they present special usage problems. Some of them are always singular. Some are always plural. And others may be singular or plural depending on the meaning of the sentence. Okay, so again, it comes down to context. It comes down to what are the words around certain pronouns, these indefinite pronouns, what are they really saying? And so you need to be reading. The whole thing is a picture, is a puzzle. It's all part of literacy and proper grammar. In addition, such pronouns are often followed by a phrase. Therefore, you must first determine the number of the pronoun and then remember the rule about phrases that come between subject and verb. Okay? So what is the rule about phrases that come between subject and verbs? Well, it doesn't matter if in the phrase that comes between the subject and the verb, if this phrase, this grouping of words have plural or singular verbs, it only matters what the subject of the sentence and the verb that is in agreement with that subject, that they agree. It only matters if they match. So if you have a singular subject for the sentence, then you're going to have a singular verb for that same sentence that's going to match that subject of the sentence. While at the same time, if you have a plural subject for the sentence, then you're going to have a plural verb, and it doesn't matter what's in the middle. Okay, so you got to remember. So although when you find such pronouns, they're going to be followed by a phrase, often more often than not. The following common words are singular: each, either, neither, one, obviously one, no one, every one, anyone, someone, everyone, anybody, somebody, everybody. They are common words that are singular. Each does his own cooking. Each is singular, and does is the matching verb. Okay? So it's singular. Each of the boys does his own cooking. Not each of the boys do his own cooking. You hear the difference? Do would be actually incorrect, for each doesn't match. Everyone enjoys the summertime. Everyone is also singular, and so enjoys the summertime. Every one of the campers enjoy the summertime. Every one of the campers enjoy the summertime. You're missing a word here. I'm sorry. Enjoy. The word that should be added there. So it should be right here. Every one of the campers enjoy the summertime. Not every one of the campers enjoys the summertime. You hear the difference? It's subtle, but it is there. There is a difference. Indefinite pronouns as subject. The following common words are plural: several, few, both, many. Okay, these are indefinite. Several cannot be defined by two or more. It could be hundreds, it could be one. A few could be a handful, it could be two. Both could be two, but it could be more. And many can be hundreds, thousands. It doesn't matter, but they're undefined, they're indefinite. But they are commonly plural. Several of the students were transferred. Okay, well, we also know that several is there. But let's see, look at this, of the students. Now you can tell that this is a plural sentence, okay, because now the subject here is students. Well, or the noun here is plural, students. Several of the students in this little clause right here. Several of the students, it's plural, were transferred. So several and were, they're both plural. So they are definitely talking and they are in agreement. Few on the committee attend meetings. Both of the teams play very well. Many were impressed by the guest speaker. Many and were are both plural. Plural. The words some, any, none, all, and most may be singular or plural depending on the meaning of the sentence. Okay, so all of these words are dependent upon what comes before and what comes after. So these words need to be read in context with what comes before and what comes after it. All those words around it will clue you in if you're reading carefully. Some of the show was hilarious. Well, some is singular because it refers to the show. Okay? So look. Some of the show was hilarious. This is a singular. There's one show. Just like in that before, that you've got to look at it, was hilarious. So the verb was has to be in agreement with this pronoun some. Okay? So they're all matching. Some of the actors were hilarious. Now look, actors, plural. There's that S. You can see it. Some of the actors were hilarious. Some is plural because it's referring to the actor, to the actors, which is plural. All of the workout seems simple. This is singular. All of the workout. There's only one workout. So all and seems are one. And so they agree with each other. All of the exercises, plural, seem simple. Well, we're talking about multiples. So you know that all and seem are actually plural, even though they might seem like they are singular. Most of the program was new to me. So most, referring to the majority part of one program, because there's only one program. So most is the major part of one program. Was new to me. And was is in agreement with most and is in agreement with the program. It's singular. Most of the programs were new to me. Obviously, now we've changed. You can look at this verb, it's plural. And so sometimes if you can't tell what this word is, look for the verb, and the verb will tell you if it is singular or plural, if it's done properly. Obviously, most of the programs, and if you need any more help, then look for the subject, which is the programs, which, there you go. So programs is plural. So you have a plural verb. So most of the programs were new to me, a number of separate programs. You now know that there are many programs, not just one, that were new to me. Is any of the salad left? Salad being singular, so is any, this is singular. Is any of the salad left? Are any of the shirts clean? Are any, well, first of all, are is a plural being verb. Are any, it's plural, of the shirts. The shirts are plural. So the verb are is plural as well. None of the story being singular in nature, none of the story makes sense. Well, we're talking about one story, so there's one and one. And none of the movies having an S, being plural, were exciting. But if you needed any more explanation, were is a plural be verb. Was becomes were, and so it's plural. So we know that this, none, this pronoun, is actually plural. It's an indefinite pronoun, and it's plural. Thank you for being with me today. And next class, we will discuss the agreement, compound subjects. God bless. Have a blessed day.